The Fast family has been on crazy missions, raced, tricked out cars, stolen from trains, driven tanks, and I'm not even going to mention the submarine. But they're still here. 2 decades after Dom Toretto and his crew started stealing DVD players in those civics. From heists and streetcars to launching into space and jumping off buildings like Tom Cruise. You can't miss all the amazing cars in the Fast films. Welcome to Infinite Mileage, where we'll look at the evolution of cars in the Fast films. The Fast and the Furious. The Fast and the Furious started being all about street races and heavily modified cars, especially the opening heist scene with those 3 black EJ1 Civics hijacking a truck full of DVD players. And let's be honest, watching that Civic fit under that truck was awesome. But let's not forget about all the other cars, especially Brian's highly modified green 1995 Mitsubishi Eclipse and Dom's red RX-7. At the time, the paint and liveries were great, and I think they really fit their characters. And these were the kinds of cars that any car guy would have loved to be in at the time. Especially Dom's black Charger with that big supercharger catcher that opened and closed with every rev. Let's not forget that orange Mach 3 Supra, which both of them built together from the ground up. That was the car, which not only went toe-to-toe with the American muscle, but was also fast enough to beat a Ferrari at half the price. That scene, despite its heavy use of CGI, probably had the biggest impact on the car community because it turned the Supra into an icon. This film ended up earning over $207 million on a $38 million budget. So, of course, there was going to be a sequel. Too Fast, Too Furious. This was a sequel in every sense of the word. Sure, it wasn't the most memorable film in the franchise, but it took what made the first one good and then added a little bit to it. Tej and Roman became part of the Fast and Furious family, which meant more cars. But it was that opening scene with Brian's new whip, the silver R34 Skyline with blue stripes and a blue underglow, that assured us the sequel was going to be epic. But wait, it only got better. The sequel used a drawbridge jump to exaggerate that same feeling we got in the last scene of the first movie when the Charger and Supra jumped over the railroad. But this time, there were only JDMs, which included Suki's S2000, Brian's Skyline, an RX-7, and the same Supra they used in the last movie, but a different color. At least during the start of the film, because they also featured a Camaro in which Brian and Roman jumped onto a yacht. That's what I like to call a real Dukes of Hazzard moment. But the main highlight of the films was Brian's green Lancer Evo 9. With questionable livery, and Roman's topless purple Mitsubishi Eclipse. They stole the show, especially with that iconic scene where Brian drifts into reverse on the highway and flips the bird to Roman. That was epic. But it was now time for the third entry in the franchise, which was drastically different from the first and second films. Enjoying this video? Leave a like and subscribe to Infinite Mileage so we can keep making exciting videos just like this one. The Fast and the Furious, Tokyo Drift. That movie was so good that it also serves as an unofficial backstory for Han. Most of the film was shot in Tokyo with lots more JDMs after the success of the sequel, but the opening scene introduced us to Sean and his 1971 Chevy Monte Carlo, which somehow managed to beat that red Dodge Viper. This was the same scene where Sean demolished a whole house that was still under construction, but that race led him to Tokyo, where he'd find very different cars from what he was used to. This was the same time Sean managed to get in trouble again and challenged DK with his drift spec Nissan 350Z. This is where we really got introduced to some beautiful cars. Especially Han's Nissan Silvia, aka Mona Lisa, which he lent to Sean, who later destroyed that car in a race. Way to go, Sean. We saw another Lancer Evo 9 that Sean got from Han, but it was very understated when compared to the one from Too Fast, Too Furious. Can you guess what wasn't understated? Han's RX-7 with that veil-side body kit. Because before this movie came around, nobody even knew that an RX-7 could look that good. That orange paint with black stripes, those wide fenders, and the body kit was all perfect. And unlike the RX-7s of the past, which were made to be fast, this one was solely for drifting. But let's not forget about the Ford Mustang with a Frankenstein Lancer engine in it. You see, this movie was all about going above and beyond to make the best drift build, and somehow that Ford Mustang was successful at beating DK's Black 350Z. Nobody saw that coming. But that was the theme moving forward because the later movies became less about modified cars and more about actions and CGI. Fast and Furious. This was probably the best example of a reboot and actually worked out well. It brought back the original cast, and since it was kind of an homage to the first movie and those heists, we saw more purpose-built cars like that 67 Chevrolet heist truck, the 89 Chevrolet R3500 crew cab, and Dom's 87 Buick Grand National GNX. This is where the flashy car era officially ended. Well, somewhat. Although the reboot was cool, it clearly wasn't the best film for car guys because there weren't a lot of cars. Sure, that 70 Plymouth Roadrunner GTX that Dom drove at the end of Tokyo Drift makes a comeback, but for the most part, it was underwhelming. All we got was Brian's stolen 2009 Subaru Impreza WRX STI, Letty's 70 Chevrolet Chevelle SS, and Mia's 2003 Acura NSX. There was a brief appearance of a 1986 Ford RS200, another R34 Skyline Brian drives, which would be a reoccurring theme in later movies, and of course Dom's infamous Dodge Charger. That was all we had when it came to cars. So instead of being a franchise focused on illegal street racing, they went in a different direction. Fast 5. You know a movie's probably going to be good when the first scene has Vin Diesel getting broken out of a prison bus with his old crew. But this movie was more about intricately planned heists involving trains, lots of destruction, explosions, and fewer of those amazing cars in previous movies. Of course, the heist needed some cars to steal, preferably expensive cars, which they wouldn't pass by. So Fast 5 brought us not one, but two Koenigsegg CCXRs. Interestingly enough, at the time this movie was filmed, there were only 4 of these cars ever made. Just like Roman and Tej said, that was a big deal. These, coupled with some other limited edition cars, included Han's 2011 Lexus LFA, Brian's Porsche Baby Blue 996 GT3 RS, and a badass black Acura NSX that Mia drove in the opening Prison Break scene. But why was Dom driving a 1963 Corvette that isn't even real? Or stealing cars like the 1972 De Tomasa Pantera GTX, which was notorious for overheating? Who would want such a car? But to the franchise's credit, Dom did return with his Charger, and Brian rolled down in a rare 1971 Nissan Skyline GTR. They even had a 2010 Dodge Charger cop car to steal a Vault. But this wasn't the craziest car in the franchise, as you'll soon find out. Apart from that awesome Lykan Hypersport in Fast 7, the rest of the cars were more purpose-built like Dwayne Johnson's heavily armored Gurkha LPV and similar trucks like the Navistar. Dom's Charger kept making appearances too, but you could hardly call it a car anymore. Like that heavily modified Ice Charger in Fast 8 with that huge EMP rig and a jet engine. It was clear by this point that the Fast franchise took a different direction with fictional cars like Shaw's unbelievable Formula 1 Frankenstein flip car. Sure. There were some brief appearances with relatable cars like Dom's 1970 Plymouth Cuda in Fast 6, or that awesome 1969 Dodge Charger Daytona, but we started to see less and less cars. In Fast 7 and later, we only saw exotic cars like Deckard Shaw's Aston Martin DB9, Roman's Bugatti Veyron, and Dom's off-road Charger. When Fast 7 ended with Paul Walker driving off in a white Supra, the franchise became more about action than cars. And it's become more of a meme now because the series is nothing like the first 3 movies. That's all for today's episode. I guess it's all about family now, not cars. Let us know what you think in the comments below, and I hope you enjoyed the video. If you did, give this video a big thumbs up, and don't forget to click the subscribe button and hit the notification bell. I'll see you next time with a brand new video. Till then, take care.